Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 11. It has a long title. It's called Information System Acquisition, Development, and Maintenance. I'll define what information system is, but basically it's anything that you run on a computer. It can be considered as information system, the OS like Windows 10, um, business application, which mostly will focus on. Business applications are things like you do online banking, you buy things from Amazon. Those interaction are all considered as business application. Nowadays, most of us are probably more familiar with the mobile application, like things on your cell phone, or maybe used through the desktop. These are all considered as information system. Okay. The purpose is we want to understand the security requirement behind information system, whether the information system is something that you developed or some information system that you actually purchased. So we talk about the concept of system development lifecycle or software development lifecycle. They're similar. Um, and also we will spend a little bit time in talking about correct processing in developing business applications. Uh, I'm not sure how many of you are actually have an inspiration, aspiration for doing developments, writing programs, be a programmer, but I just want to share some of that with you so that you can appreciate when you are developing an application that customer will use over the internet. What are some of the proper way to processing information so that we can also understand the implication of security. Okay. We will also look at something called enterprise security architecture from an information security development software perspective. It's a bit more detailed information that you may not require. So treat those as a bit of like an appendix. Okay, so let's take a look at the system requirement for information systems. So based on ISO 27001, uh, this is to make sure security is an integral part of information system. Often part back in the days, not very long ago, you're talking about 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when security is not so much integrated into every part of IT. Often security is kind of like an afterthought. I tell you a story. Oftentimes when we will call by the development manager, we being the information security teams, being called on by the developer or by the development manager to, at the end of the development of a business application, to kind of provide a what we call security assessment. So the problem with that is anything that we found would have to kind of patch it up, you know. We find any security hole, they'll just patch it up as compared to security right from the beginning at the conceptual stage, in the business requirement stage, in the system design and the coding stage. Okay, that's called integration. Okay, you integrate security every step of the way. Later on, we'll talk about how we can build that in to the system development lifecycle or software development lifecycle. There are different gating for security to be reviewed and even approved before they can proceed. Okay, like in the business requirement, system requirement, and so on. Okay, when we talk about information system, we are talking about including the operating system, infrastructure, business application, commercial software. We call commercial off the shelf. That means COTS, COTS. That's something you can purchase, okay? Not really off the shelf, but at least you can purchase from a provider, from a company, okay? Uh, Including services, including user developed applications, okay? So information system is a fairly big term, but for most of our discussions, I think we can kind of focus on uh, business applications that company either develop or purchase in order to support customers. So we're talking about online banking things, like an example. I'm not restricting that, but online banking is a good example. Online purchasing like Amazon, software that you buy stuff, you browse through in a catalog. Typical one like you want to sell something on a platform like Kijiji or PayPal. Those would be typical um, um, uh, information system that we are referring to that has processing power, has customer-facing portion, has a back-end process, and so on. Okay. CISSP also address these security concern and is referring to software development security. I actually like this term a little bit more because it's acting more easily understandable, not as broad. Okay, but in any case, that's what it is. We're talking about developing business application and including security requirements. So security requirements, we're talking about the design and implementation of the information system supporting the business process. Okay, this is critical for security. I mentioned earlier that in the past, information security only being called at the end of the development, doing testing and asking us, oh, you guys wanted to review the application and confirm whether you're okay with them. But that's sometimes too late because some of the security problems are not just by coding, but by design from the very beginning. Okay, security requirements should be identified and agreed prior to the development and or implementation of the information system. So obviously, things has to be done at the beginning, okay, before it gets too late. All right. All security requirements should be identified at the requirement phase of a project. I mentioned about these, right? Never after the fact. So when you have an idea of developing a system, think of security right there. Now, this is not something you as an individual can do. This has to be from a business process point of view. That's why, remember, in the second lesson, we talk about information security and risk framework. If the framework demands any self-developed application needs to go through security gatings, that's where you want to put it. Otherwise, it will always be after the fact. Also, all security requirements should be justified, agreed, and documented as part of the overall business case for an information system. Okay, so what here referring to is security requirements should be, out in the open. It needs to be discussed. It needs to be agreed upon. It cannot be kind of forced into it because the business doesn't really believe in it and so on. So it needs to be understood. It needs to be explained. It needs to be justified. It needs to be agreed on, and it also needs to be documented. So some of the security requirement may be chosen to be exempt from that could be a possible way based on business decisions, right? Again, we always talked about that information security is to support the business, but our job is to making sure that the business leaders understand if they want to skip, if they want to exempt from that particular control, what would be the implication? What are the kind of costs that they are incurring by not doing that security control? Security requirement analysis and specification. Statement of business requirement for new information system or enhancement to an existing information system should specify the requirement for security control. Okay, so security control could be encryption, protection of any personal identifiable information. It could be backup, okay, and restore, disaster recovery. All these are security requirements. They need to be identified. It's not something when we look at them and say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. It should be all published that these are the things that you should do. Again, these all go back to the framework. Okay, so here are some of the guidance for implementing that. Okay, and consider to include automated control in information systems. Not everything is manual, so meaning that if you are creating a log, an audit log, which should be automated, and and the need to support any manual control. Okay. Similar considerations should be applied when evaluating software packages developed or purchased for business applications. If we are implementing securities, we needed to also think of situation whereby we are purchasing a software packages or we are evaluating or assessing a software application that we did not develop. Okay, so there might be some challenges for something that's already developed. So it's almost always like a Q&A. So because you don't know whether they have considered that or not, then it would be part of a assessment process with the company that provide you with the software. Sometimes the software is kind of like a turnkey system. I don't know whether you still use this term, but system that you purchased and then there's maybe no support, then that is harder. But at least from a purchasing cycle, you get to ask questions on security, see whether they encrypt their databases. If not, then how can the database be encrypted? Is it something that you can turn on and off and so on? So you need to have those configuration understandings in the area of security. Okay. Um, Security requirement and control should reflect the business value of information assets involved and the potential business damage which might result from failure or absence of securities. Again, I mentioned about this earlier that security requirement and control should be reflection of the business decision, business direction, and should also be risk-based and also to support the business. But in any case, the advantage and the disadvantage, the pros and cons should explain to the business as to if they chose not to do something or do something, what that means to them, both not just from a cost point of view, but also from a vulnerability and threats point of view. Okay. The last bullet, information security system requirements should be integrated in the early stage of information system project. Controls introduced at the design stage are significantly cheaper or implement and maintain than those included after the fact. I talk about these more than once now, so I'm not going to dwell in it, but you understand. Apart from it's a good practice, it's also a cost saving issue. When you include something security right from the beginning, it's cheaper, period. Okay, I had a few pictures about poor design and what I found this. I felt that this is a good humorous picture for you to appreciate how important is design. Okay, if you're poor design, this is what you get. Okay, this is what you get. Okay, this is another one. Okay, you build a stairs that nobody wants. Okay, this is actually a good example. You build all the security, but it leads to nowhere. Nobody actually need that stair. Okay, this one is very interesting. You look at the title, the banner. This is a Department of Planning. Okay, this is the Department of Planning. This is the building for Department of Planning, and they don't even have sufficient planning to put the title, the name of the department, sufficiently on on the wall. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, they don't even want to take the effort to remove that and line it up properly. I mean, that tells what kind of a work ethic, what kind of management skill that this company has. It's very interesting. Okay, so implementation guidelines for purchase product, things that you purchase, a formal testing and acquisition process should be followed. So we can't just say, oh, this is, we like this, the sales manager really like this software, so let's buy it and use it. Now, proper evaluation acquisition process should be followed, and any purchase software should gone through testing, and the testing criteria should be agreed upon between the business owner, the software development or testing team, as well as information security. Okay, contracts with suppliers who address the identified security requirements. I talk about this many times, and in the future course called Governance and Risk Management, we actually had a lesson that talk about third-party contracts and stuff like that. Okay, so where security functionality in a proposed product does not satisfy the specific requirement and the risk introduced and associated controls should be reconsidered prior to purchasing the product. So if you're purchasing a product, going through your evaluation process, you realize that some of the controls are not there and they can't build it in and you can't turn it on. Then you have to evaluate if I purchase this software, I implement this software, and if this control is not there, then what kind of vulnerability we are introducing, what kind of risk we are introducing to the company. Okay? Something like that, okay? Where additional functionality is supplied and cause a security risk, this should be disabled or proposed control structure should be reviewed to determine if advantage can be taken of the enhanced functionality available. Oftentimes when we purchase something from outside, they had maybe more functionality than we want. We needed to know even though they say, well, with same price, you get all these extra functions. And if those extra functions are not something we want, we needed to know whether those can be turned off, right? It's not just the more the better, not necessary. The more functionality, meaning the more vulnerability that it may create. Since we're not using those functionality, we may not even test them, and we may not be aware those functionality can be penetrated by the bad guys, hacked in by the bad guys. So it is better to turn it off for things that we don't use. Okay. Okay. Other consideration, if considered appropriate, for example, for cost reason, management wish to make use of independent, evaluate, and certified products. So meaning that we don't want it to, not just from a purchasing point of view that we are buyers for cheaper products or company that we had a closer relationship with. We want to be able to purchase products that are independently certified. Okay, so that makes the product more reliable from a security point of view. From our point of view, we're not concerned about cost, right? The business is. We are concerned about whether the product is secure. And how can we do that? Is if we can purchase something that are certified by some neutral organization that this software has been thoroughly tested and improved and so on, then it actually worth more from a risk management point of view. Okay. Further information about evaluation, we can always refer to ISO 15408, another ISO standard that talked about evaluation of IT security products and so on. So we're not going to talk about too much in here. And there's also another ISO standard called TR 13335-3, which provide risk management process to identify requirement for security control. Okay. So ISO have obviously many standards that will help us in very specialized specific areas. Okay, so let's talk about system development life cycle. Okay, SDLC. Basically, it's a life cycle of 5 processes. Okay, initiation, acquisitions, implementation, operation, and disposal. Now, this is more geared towards acquisition of a system. Okay. Development too. We talk about that too. But there will be a software development life cycle that we'll talk about a little bit more. Okay. So there are subsequent tables that list out the security concern of these different SDLC steps. Okay, in the life cycle. So for initiation, the security concerns are security risk ranking. We want to categorize what are the risks that come with the project initiation, what kind of project we want, what kind of system we're thinking of, and then we should do a primary risk assessment. Okay, so this is in line. This is to support the initiation of determining the need, linkage between mission of the company, assessing the alternative, and preparing for the investment. So at this early stage, we want to be able to categorize what kind of risk we're generating, okay, and an initial risk assessment if possible. Okay, so during the acquisition or development stage, which involve functional statements, market research, feasibility studies, requirement analysis, uh, alternative analysis, cost benefit analysis, and so on. The security consideration would be again a further detailed risk assessment, security functional requirement analysis. So we look at any functional requirement and see whether there are anything that jump out. Security assurance requirements, okay, cost consideration and reporting, security planning, security control development. So at this stage, with the functional statements, then you can start thinking of what kind of security control we need. So we needed to identify them and develop them. Develop security testing and evaluation and other planning components. So when the system is being implemented, which meaning installation of a software, inspection, acceptance testing, user training, and so on, the security consideration in parallel to that should be inspection and acceptance from a security point of view. If you have a set of security requirement, that should be checked against the system during the implementation, system integration. Integration meaning you might be taking in system A, but system A may interface with system B, C, or D, and B, C, D is already existing. So by interacting with these system B, C, and D, it might introduce new risks to these systems that are already approved. You know what I mean? So system integration is key in trying to identify whether there are new risks being generated by this new system. Okay, system certification and system accreditation. Okay. Okay, so ongoing to operation and maintenance. Okay, this is like performance measuring, like every year or every 6 months, any contract modification, ongoing operation, maintenance. These are kind of the ongoing stuff. So for those, security considerations are configuration management and control, continuous monitoring, and etc., etc., etc. So things doesn't really stop. It's kind of like a cycle. That's why it's called. And often there is an extra step. The last step is called disposal. Okay, so when system is at the end of life, 4 or 5 years, it's no longer being used, then you needed to have an appropriate way of disposing the system and mainly the data and exchange and sale. If you want to sell your system, making sure there's nothing really left on the system that will expose the company confidential information, transfer, donation, contract close out, and so on. The security consideration obviously is information preservation. Okay. You want to preserve the data, you want to offload the data, you want to erase anything there, sanitization. If there's hardware and software, you want to have proper disposal and so on.